Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make these mini food pun cards for Valentine's Day. Of course, you can also turn it into larger folded cards, but I like the charm of having something small with a lot of white space. Now, since I have 4 cards to show you and it's going to take a while to show all of them, I decided to put this into 2 parts. So I'll be uploading the second part in a couple of days. So if you're still interested after watching this one, don't forget to check out the second part. I will link it both together once I've uploaded both of them. Hope you guys enjoy the process. For the first one, I just painted a muffin. I chose blueberry muffin because I want a tiny bit of color on top of the brown cake. I first start with a light yellow ochre and lemon yellow, and I fill the top of the muffin with this color, applying it by making small strokes to create some textures instead of something flat. When I paint cakes, I tend to think about the baking process of it too. What color is the uncooked batter and what color is it after it's been baked or when it's even over baked. This helps me to figure out how to layer the colors personally, so I just keep building up the colors slowly, layering from light yellowish color to light golden brown. As you build it up, just imagine which parts of the cakes would be cooked more in the oven so you can start darkening the areas of the muffin that would likely be golden brown first. For the muffin liners, I did the exact same thing, but because the liners are white, the brown colors which peeks through would be lighter than the brown on top, so keep that in mind while painting. Also, the bottom of the muffin would more likely be darker brown color because it's in contact with the muffin tray or tin and would likely be more cooked than the rest of the muffin, so I used a darker tint of brown for that part. The next thing I painted were the blueberries. I started off with a crimson color to show the undertones of the blueberry color. I don't paint perfect circles because when the blueberries are cooked, it turns a bit mush and squishy, so don't worry too much about the shape. I also painted the juices that flows out of the blueberry to give it more realistic approach. Then I went over with some purple on top of the red, then going over it again with some ultramarine with a tiny bit of black for the final color of the blueberry. Don't forget, some of the blueberries would also peek out from the liners, so don't forget to add some down the bottom, keeping in mind the same concept of the colors being lighter as there is a thin white liner covering it up. And after this, I went back to painting the liners. The tip of the liners on top would much likely be a bit wider as the paper would stretch more down the bottom. The top would have less paper sticking to the cake, and where the ridges goes in and out, the ones going in would be darker because it has more contact with the cake and it's also in shadow. After I'm done with the base colors, I went over certain parts, darkening and adding depth and a bit more detail to make it pop out more. Just have a look at your own painting and see which parts you want to pop out more and balance it out. With mine, because the undertone is more yellow, I decided to add some orange tones to make it look more golden and appetizing. I repeatedly do this for all parts and slowly building it up from orange tones to browns, layering the colors to create depth and vibrancy of the painting. I follow this step for the liners too. Remember, when you're layering, when you build up color on one part, you have to follow through with the whole thing so it's more balanced. If not, one area of the painting would have a more finished look than other areas. I also added darker colors around the bottom of the blueberries to suggest that the blueberries have shrunk a bit and makes the color of the cake pop out a bit more. Finally, we are almost done with this muffin painting. Last but not least, I went over highlighted parts with a white pen like the blueberries and the liners. Then I added final touches with a really dark brown to define all of the shapes yet again, and added a bit of shadow for the bottom, which wasn't all too necessary. You can omit this step, but I was just playing around with it. And we are done with this muffin painting. Go ahead and write your quote, "Muffin compares to you," with pencil. For this one, I wrote it with a 0.05 tip fine liner, but I kind of regretted it because the true black color was a bit too harsh for the soft watercolors. So I decided to stick with pencil for the others, but of course you can do whatever you prefer. The second one for today is this Brie cheese. I have to admit this is quite a tricky one to make. You have to be careful to not be too heavy-handed when making the white skin around the cheese. It's always easier to paint too light and go over it again than painting too dark from the beginning. Also, another tip with painting white objects is that gray can be made with a lot of different colors. You can have warm gray, which has warm tones, or cool gray, which has cooler tones. Mixing different warm and cold grays will help to create vibrancy and depth into your painting. I have to admit though, I'm still also learning about this matter, and it does take a bit of experience and bravery to mix different hues for shadows or highlights. I'm not yet too comfortable with mixing very vibrant hues into my grays, so I keep this undertone hues to a minimal still. It is still something that I really want to practice and work on in the future. The grays that I used here are actually mixed with either a bit of ultramarine blue or a little bit of crimson. However, it's not too visible. Of course, you can just use a gray that you have in your palette, but it's just something that you can keep in mind. I keep building the grays from the lightest to darkest parts for the nooks and crannies around the skin. It might look a little bit too dark at the moment, but once the inside of the cheese is painted rather than just white paper, it'll all balance out. For the cheese, I use a really light watery consistency as I want to keep the middle of the cheese very light yellow. Then I started painting the herb with a light green color because I almost forgot about the herb and painted the whole thing yellow. After the light green color is a little bit dry, I then added a dark green to define the shape of the herb a little bit more. Then after I've settled those green parts, I build up on the cheese color because the cheese gets darker and color around the outside a little bit more. I keep the consistency of the yellow still watery, so it would blend smoothly towards the very edge. I mix a little bit of orange and yellow ochre to create deeper yellow that is a little bit muted and not too cold. Then I finish off with the small cheese holes with the same dark yellow mixture, and then we're done with the cheese painting. You can go ahead and write Brie Mind in pencil or pen. So that's it for this video. These are the finished paintings. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you do, you can click subscribe so you won't miss the second part of this video, which will be coming in a few days. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next video. Bye!